one of the top professional speakers in the industry, Bernadette Vadurro. I met her last night, and this lady is a bundle of energy, ever dynamic, and at the same time pretty good at making sure that we all have fun while we learn. And I think that's one great experience that we have today. Some of the companies that she has worked with in the past were American Express, Chrysler Corporation, and believe it or not, the CIA, and many more, as you can see from the list there. So without further ado, Bernadette Vadurro.
Thank you so much. Thank you. When I did training at Chrysler Corporation on thinking outside the box, expanding your innovation and creativity, I discovered that 2 years later they sold themselves to the Germans. So I want to say be careful that you don't go too far out of the box, right? You want to stay innovative and creative. And what we know today is that it is essential to be being relevant. We have to be relevant. We have to continue to see how we can enhance and be better at what we do. No one can sit and just be satisfied with the status quo. So we're going to talk about what we need to do to avoid what we call creativity killers in the workplace. And I want you to be completely conscientious of what they are, because it's so easy to fall into these. All right, so let's talk about the first one. We are what we call creatures of habit. And let me give you an example. How many of you have a favorite restaurant? May I see a show of hands of those of you that have a favorite restaurant? Now, may I ask, what is your tendency when you go to your favorite restaurant? What do you tend to order? Yes, the same food. Why? Because we know it is so delicious, right? Now, how many of you in this room right now are sitting next to someone that you work with on a regular basis? May I say, like in the same department, can I see a show of hands? All engineering, I know you're saying all together back there. Yes. Safest places up front. Why are we sitting next to our buddies in engineering? You know, they make us crazy at work. But by golly, we'd rather sit next to them than what? Try sitting next to someone, change sitting next to someone that we may not know. Now, I want to share a very short story with you. I went to Orlando, Florida in 2006. I'm from New Mexico. The United States is humongous. It's just a huge, huge geographical area. And so I flew from one part of the country, the west side, to the east side. And there were 2,800 speakers, trainers, consultants, and I'm standing in line waiting to get some coffee. And I see an absolutely beautiful woman, two people up, and we start chatting, as you do in line, waiting for a Starbucks coffee and something. And I say, gosh, it would be so nice to get a piece of fruit. You know, these resorts in the U.S., they don't often have fruit readily available. And she said there's a great, you can get fruit at the resort, at the spa, and we continue talking. And she looks at my name tag, and she says, oh, you're from New Mexico. And I said, yes. And at that point, I looked at her name tag, and I said, oh, my goodness. Are your grandparents Tio Vito and Tia Dal, which means Aunt Dal and Uncle Vito? And she said, yes. And I said, you are my second cousin. I have not seen her since we were 6 years old. And we became very good friends since 2006. But my point is that I don't usually go to a conference and sit next to the people I came with or the people I work with. Because you know what? I could die and never meet my new best friend. I could die and never taste my favorite food in life if every time I go to a restaurant, I eat the same thing over and over again. So how many of you thought you were coming to a 1-hour seminar? May I see a show of hands of those of you that thought you were coming for 1 hour? Well, the reality is that I'm going to challenge you to take the information, the challenges, and the things that I'm going to ask you to do and implement them over the next year so that you can expand your boundaries, increase your innovation and creativity. Now, when I make an important point, I'm going to say, get it? I would love it if you said, got it, and I'll say, good. Get it?
Got it.
Good. Now turn to one person and say, I make a commitment to make this a 1-year program. Please do that for me. We're going to try a new food. All right? We agreed to try that. The ultimate challenge is, how many of you sleep in bed with another person? Your husband or spouse? Not too much information. The ultimate challenge is to go home tonight and say, dear, would you be willing to swap sides of the bed with me for a week or two? You will have a battle on your hands because creatures of habit, we like to do the same old thing. Now, the next story that I'm going to share with you, I don't believe that we're monkeys. I'll just put that out there, right out. But I do believe that we have similar characteristics of some people say our ancestors, the monkey. And here's an example of what happened with monkeys in a particular experiment. They took 5 monkeys and they put them in a large cage that had trees like a jungle, and it was a very home-like atmosphere. And on the top of one tree, they had a large bundle of bananas. And every time the monkeys tried to go up and get the bananas, they'd pour ice cold water on them. So the monkeys, after a while, stopped trying to attempt to get the bananas because they get sprayed with the cold, cold water. One by one, they removed the monkeys from the cage and they would put new monkeys in. And what do you think the new monkeys would try to do? Get the bananas. But their colleagues, the other monkeys, would drag the other monkeys down and say, no, 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 you can't go up there, it's not comfortable. Soon enough, all of the original monkeys had been replaced with new monkeys, and they saw that 2 generations later of monkeys, they still would not dare to go up the tree to get the bananas, despite the fact that water no longer would go after them. And that is like us. We have this long-term memory of we try something, it doesn't quite work, and we never want to try it again. Agreed? So I just want to put that information out there about change, how we change, how much energy we put into changing what we try, when to bail and when not to bail, because sometimes it's about timing. We may not be ready for that project or that process. The next concept is fire hosing. Now, have any of you ever worked as a firefighter? Okay, what does a firefighter do? They fight fires, and what do they do it with? Great big fire hoses, right, with huge velocity. When that water comes out, it's huge velocity. So we come to our staff meetings, and someone says, I'd like to try this idea. And what do we hear sometimes in our meetings? We can't do that, right? That will never work. That's a dumb idea. I mean, things of that nature. Have you heard things of that? Now, I did a training at Intel. Anybody have a computer in the room? Many of our computers have Intel guts in it. And the culture of Intel is that they will never fire hose an idea, no matter how ridiculous it sounds. Their standard response is, that's an interesting idea. Now, when you respond with, that's an interesting idea, what do you do to the concept of the idea itself? You suspend judgment. And so I would like for you to think about the culture of suspending judgment when people are brainstorming, when they are problem solving, when they're looking for greater answers and options in whatever you do. All right? So fire hosing is something we eliminate in really becoming more creative and innovative in the workplace. The next thing is the one right answer. Many times organizations, and that is a result of our culture and our upbringing. I'd like for you to think of this little nesting doll as you. When you came into the world, you were innovative, you were creative, you were exploratory, you were just the most creative person on the planet. And then you started crawling around and mama or daddy said, oh, no, 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 you better not go there, you could hurt yourself, you could burn yourself. And they were being protective and loving, of course. And maybe we got something, we were going to go to a plug because it looked like it might be fun to stick something in a plug. And we might have got our little hands smacked because they were trying to protect us. And so we realized that, we couldn't quite be as innovative and creative as we'd like to because of the concerns of our safety. So we had a little layer put upon us. And then we went to school, first grade, kindergarten, preschool, and we colored the most beautiful picture. And the professor, the teacher, said to us, everyone knows that the stars are not green. And why did you color that cheese purple? Have you ever seen purple cheese? And they'll ask the questions, and you did not stay within the lines that you were supposed to stay. And there's all of this structure that goes into schooling that teaches us that there is one right way to do things. And we began to assimilate. And then we became teenagers. And really, teenagers is when most of the assimilation takes place, even though they are great rebels to the parents. How many of you have lived through raising teenagers? May I see a show of hands? How many of you We're a teenager at some point in life. All of us. And the peer pressure when you are a teenager is immense to look like, sound like. And you could be distinguished by how you dressed, what you wore, how you acted, by the groups and the cliques that you associated with. And some of us may have been geeks. We may have not fit in, we were the chess club or whatever it was, right? So that pressure to look like and assimilate. And then we grew up as adults. And how many of you have had someone ask you, what is it that you really love doing and how much would you like to get paid to do it? That option for most people is completely removed from their conscious mind. Yet you are extremely fortunate to work in the environment that you work in. I will tell you, I travel all over the country of the United States and all over the world. And this is one of the most top-notch organizations I have ever encountered in my 22 years as a professional speaker. So I give kudos to the people that are responsible for creating. So in gratitude for that you get to be here, getting a buffet of learning every day, that they are encouraging you to think outside the box. You don't realize how many organizations don't want their employees to think. They say, I didn't pay you to think. I just pay you to show up and do the rooms that you do. They're not interested in that. But the blessings to be in this kind of an environment where you are wholly embraced as an individual and encouraged to use your creativity is huge. So please give somebody near you a high five and a thank you of gratitude that we are here today. Yes. Getting away from the first right answer is important. There may be many right answers. And if we get satisfied with the first right answer, we may shortchange ourselves. Because there may be many good answers and many superb answers. So I encourage you to not stop at the first right answer, but to continue striving for the best answers that you can be. Because that will help to ensure not only your survival and thrival, but your continued success in this world. We do not follow the crowd. You see, people that follow the crowd end up following them off the cliff many times. So I ask you, be different. Turn your back on the crowd and find your own way. Yes, find your own way. All right? Being different is okay. On the taxi ride here, and before I arrived, I had at least 3 people talk about the excellence of the Royal Plaza. One about the best buffet. Apparently you have the best buffet in Singapore. I have been able to enjoy it 3 days, and my clothes are really starting to feel tight. All righty, and the quality of the staff in the room. So again, kudos to you. Different is okay. Now you have a little clicker, many of you that are there, and I would like to ask you, you can answer anonymously, we're not tracking who said what, but have you ever made a mistake? If you've never made a mistake, you can answer 2, no. 1 is yes, 2 is no, and 3 is maybe. So yes, 100% have made a mistake at some point in their life. Okay, thank you for answering. If you answered yes, what did you do? Did you try to hide it when you made the mistake? Did you blame someone else? Did you ignore it? Did you admit it and apologize? All of the above at one time or the other. Please pick your answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This tells me who's answering so far. So we've got 22. We've got 30 clickers out there. Is this cool or what? Yeah, cool. I like cool. Yeah, I love cool. Alrighty, so there's 3 clickers sitting around, they may be on bunk chairs. If you keep changing your mind, you can keep changing up until I do this, and it takes it a second, and let's see. Innovation and creativity means that we are highly self-actualized individuals. It's difficult to be innovative and creative. I guess you could be a thief. I mean, there are thieves that are, I stand corrected here. There are thieves that are highly innovative and creative. But we're not associated with those people. We are associated with the best of the best. And the ability to really expand our options means that we're responsible. And so when we're encouraged to try things, we're going to make mistakes. In fact, the management guru, Tom Peters, says, if you're not making mistakes, then you're probably what? Yes, dead or dying. Because we make mistakes when we're trying new things, we're going to make mistakes. And so the new saying is, let us make mistakes quicker and faster so that we can get further along on the learning curve, so that we can really expand the options out there. All right? We want to go and we want to operate continually into what is called the alpha brainwave state. Now, each of you has either an index card or you have a piece of paper in front of you. And without looking at your neighbor's card, I would like to ask you to please write a challenge that you have here at work, a problem or an issue. Now, I'm going to give you an example. This was something that just Odette and I were brainstorming about. And here's a scenario that I see frequently. You have a big convention in town. Everybody seems to arrive at the same time. They're hot and they're tired. And they're standing in line ready to get checked into a room to get their key. That could be a problem. It could be a problem for the front desk. It's a problem for the people in the lobby. So what could you do? Let's say that my problem is I work the front desk and I feel stressed when we have big conventions and people are lining up and they're crabby. That means grumpy, grouchy, they want their room and they want it yesterday. What could we do to resolve that problem? So what your mission is simply to write, I have a challenge, and the challenge is overcrowding at certain times at the front desk. That's just simple words. And then we're going to use a process where no one speaks. People use magic markers and go around the room. We'll pick 6 problems. And for just a few minutes, I'll put on some alpha brainwave state invoking music. And you just write suggestions or solutions to that problem. The one I came up with, Odette, when we were talking is, well, perhaps some staff could come along with some cool cloths that are sitting in iced water. Cool washcloths as people are standing in line, and offered, instead of a hot cloth, a cool cloth that they could wash down with as they're waiting. And then we could have, in New Mexico, we have one of my resorts, this was an issue, and we brainstormed together, we have mariachi music, we could have Singaporean music. When we know there's a convention, we're going to have people coming in, so that they're so distracted with the music and the environment that the waiting no longer becomes a part of the problem, but more a part of the solution. But those are some things that I have thought about. I know you, and together, your collective expertise are going to come up with some answers to the issues. And I'll describe how we're going to do that in just a moment. So for right now, please jot down any challenge or concern that you're thinking about. This is totally anonymous. And if you could do me a favor and write as clearly as possible, that would be helpful.